Carpal tunnel syndrome from slashing. You go to a doctor, he goes, "Oh, how'd you hurt your wrist?" "Well, I was slashing skins with my boys."
All right,
You're
welcome.
more polite than Sean. Welcome to Tales from the Ditch. Don't you cut me off. This is my moneymaker, my retirement egg. That whole $4 we got. Here you go. Tales from the Ditch, sponsored by The Rapture, Newports, Jerry Falwell, Diversity and Tolerance Award, the Joel Osteen for Integrity and Preaching Award, Sean's Nipple. Who else is sponsors?
Creflo Dollar.
Creflo Dollars, budgetary
Fund.
to college, yeah.
Creflo.
Rob Bell's textual criticism class available now. Best adaptation of a non-fictional book.
Universalism today.
Very universalism today. Oh, Sean, you want to talk about what grinds your gears, or we want to introduce our guest?
Let's introduce our guest.
We
have here today the most distinguished pastor, Jason. Jason, you're a pastor at the Sparks Church, which is where I call my home. Rivals of the church that Seth pastors at. And you've been a pastor there for like 3 years now?
Yeah,
3
give
or
or
4
take.
years. I mean, you've been involved there for much longer than that.
Yeah.
And kind of in the unofficial role of pastor, but you've been had the pastor title for like 3 years.
Something like that. I'm horrible with times.
And what are you doing now? What's your pastor focus?
Pastor focus is on those that are hurting and broken and crushed in spirit.
So Sean.
Right?
Oh.
So Sean, yeah.
Oh gosh.
And in that I primarily provide care for their past, for their childhood, working through those memories. Looking to have Jesus heal in those places.
So you do soul care, which I'm on the soul care board for Reno.
Cool.
More importantly, though, you're a lay elder, which means he's awesome, and we do what the staff guys do, but for free.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
And with less free time.
I feel like I have this blue-collar pride, so I have to constantly remind people, I'm like, well, I worked a shift today. We all worked a shift today, but I, for some reason, talk like I came back from the docks. But
It's true.
it's good time. You have some blue-collar pride stuff.
Oh, absolutely. I have a strange, difficult class war mentality that I can't get out of.
Jason,
I think they call it anarchy.
yeah, I think-
Yes.
What about
That's
you?
part of it.
Growing up, was your family so we've talked to you a little bit, but was your family growing up, give them like a feel for it,
Yeah.
white collar, blue collar, lower middle class, lower income? I say lower income because there's a difference between lower income and dirt poor ghetto, like, let's just
Yeah.
hope no one's knocking on the door for bill. Where was your family kind of at growing up?
For most of it, we were lower income. I grew up in Lemon Valley in a trailer park on a dirt road.
So Lemon Valley, to set the stage, is like we have a famous trailer park in the Reno area called Sun Valley, which I think is like one of the largest trailer parks in
big.
the United
Yeah,
States.
I have family there.
Yeah, but Lemon Valley is like a Sun Valley for people who don't like neighbors.
Is it?
Would you say? Is that?
Yeah, it's a little more spread out. Towards the back of the valley, you have a good number of people that are into horses and livestock.
Yeah.
The front of the valley is a little more densely populated.
Mm-hmm.
I never saw a guy in Lemon Valley chasing chickens while his house was on fire. I'm not saying it didn't happen, but I did see that in Sun Valley.
That's true.
Lemon Valley I don't know if I saw horses in Sun Valley, really. I saw like motorbikes, stuff like that, but
My time in the 70s and 80s, it was mostly a lot of biker gangs, motorcycles. That was my dad, uncles, and their friends.
what was it a particular, well, if you can't, that's fine. Was it a particular crew of bikers?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was Aryan Brotherhood.
Aryan Brotherhood. Okay.
Wow.
So they're interesting bunch.
Yeah.
They like specific people, from what I remember. Just
pretty exclusive.
not a lot of Jewish Filipinos in that, I would assume, or anything like that. So.
Oh, that kind of Aryan. I thought you were talking about the heater brand.
No. No.
I thought they were all passionate about those products.
Now, was your dad in there the whole time?
No, he was in and out.
Okay.
My dad was in and out of juvie and stuff since he was like 10, and then he kind of grew up in and out of jail and prison going forward.
Religious guy?
He found Jesus in his cell.
Jeez, there you go, man.
And when he got out that time, some things started to change in the family.
So how old was he at that point?
About 24, 25.
24, 25. Okay,
yeah.
So that... Is your dad still in Reno, Jason?
No, my dad passed away several years ago.
How many years ago was that?
Seems like 8. Somewhere around 8 years. He died of a drug overdose.
Oh, jeez.
Dang, sorry.
Why'd you bring that up, Sean? You're so rude. Gosh.
That's unfortunately that lifestyle. I mean, all I know is anecdotally, but I married into kind of a biker gang lifestyle, and that is very common.
Absolutely.
And it's funny because when you talk to people in that lifestyle, they say, I've picked the life for me. This is a life for me where nobody can tell me what to do, and I'm choosing my lifestyle, and I'm finally found happiness in this. But they're still seeking some type of happiness, and drug use almost always is seeking after that happiness. And it's like, if you found that happiness, why do you have to do drugs?
Right.
What are the drugs for?
Most of the bikers of the day were claiming they were looking for freedom. Mm-hmm. And ironically, what they found was oppression and drug addiction. Jeez. And dysfunctional families.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like you said, there's a void, huge, huge void that we all have. Just some are more aggressive about how they seek to fill it.
It's so crazy that a freedom from boundaries can become slavery. Because we think like any boundary, any law is slavery. But if you think of this, if someone like says, no, you have to, I think it was Ravi Zacharias. If you say you have to practice this piano for a few hours a day, and you go, well, that's not fair, I'm bound to this. But if you do that every day, you end up being good at it, you gain a skill, and suddenly you can make this beautiful, amazing music. And it was by being limited, having boundaries, being bound to something, being told, no, this is a structure, you have to be here this time doing this thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny how you can actually say, I want no laws, no boundaries, and actually be like, I'm enslaved by the chaos I've thrown myself into. It's such an interesting paradox to go, in freedom I found slavery. That's just so crazy.
Yeah, it's in that submission that you find freedom.
Jason, so that's kind of your old man. Where were you? How'd you grow up? Like, where did that take you? Where did you go to? Like, and so obviously, spoilers. So Jason loves Jesus. He's a Christian, but I don't think that was always the case. So where were you growing up? What did you get into? What did you lead to? What did you how'd you, we say this in soul care. So your dad was doing different things. How did you interpret that, and who did it kind of like mold you into growing up?
Yeah, so my dad had an extreme dichotomy going on. I think we all do to some degree. He loved Jesus and he wanted to be transformed by Jesus. And yet his addiction, his brain chemicals, his nurture or lack thereof, shaped him into a violent, aggressive man.
Okay.
So how does that affect a little sensitive boy? It's quite crushing.
Yeah.
So at one point, well, for most of it, physical abuse and verbal abuse. I wasn't allowed opinions or emotions. And that was all under the guise of, don't be a girl.
Yeah.
So how did that form me? So I had to stop being so sensitive and caring.
Yeah.
And I overcompensated with a false self.
Yeah.
The false self was tough, on top, smarter, bigger, faster, and much meaner.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, just to kind of explain who you are now. And once I met you, you are sensitive is the wrong word, but emotive. And you can sense emotions, and you can also express emotions to people in a very gifted way that most people
Absolutely.
can't.
Absolutely.
And to the point where I can tell that you were created in a way that you relate with people and relate to people on an emotional level that most people cannot. And you're very gifted in that. And so it's so tragic when you talk about that, hearing that was something that you had to put aside or even hide, knowing that, because literally, like, I could honestly say if there was more Jasons around, the world would probably be a better and less, angry and discomfortable place, you know?
Well, that personality is not rewarded in that environment. That's what sucks is if you grow up, all right, if you take, everyone always uses Compton or something, but like if you even take Detroit, it does not foster an atmosphere that says, oh, we just want critical thinkers who are emotionally sensitive. They're constantly, like as men, just expressing through tears, through vulnerability. It's not really reward. Same thing, Hell's Kitchen. But if you walk up and hit a guy with a bat, you will have guys like patting you on the back, like you're the man, you're tough. You can even in your head hear like, I'll never have to be a victim again. I can hit first. It doesn't reward it, and it sucks because it's almost like seriously like taking a classical painting and throwing it at a steel mill by the sparks and fire and going, oh gosh, it's not doing well. This environment is not made for it.
Yeah.
It's not all. I think about the fact that like we were made for a garden, and then we're surprised when we like walk with our feet, we stub our toe. It's like, it's because we're made for a garden, not to walk on thorns and brick, but we've had to callous our feet and callous our hands, and you had to callous your soul in a way, because that's not reward. My dad didn't reward me for that. He said the same thing. I remember I cried, and he was like, don't be a girl. He goes, just seriously, like, just stop, because he was tired from the graveyard shift. And I remember that and just went, well, I'm not a girl. So I wiped the tears and just learned. I was like, all right, this is who I gotta be. You didn't get reward for that. Like, you grow up in Watts, they don't go, man, dude, Tyrone's so emotionally vulnerable. Like, we should make him in charge of the gang. He's just he really hears our enemies.
He builds us up. He doesn't tear us down.
Do you feel like, when we talk to him, do you feel like you're truly heard? And they're like, yeah, no, there are 10-year-olds who, there was a book called Monster. It was about a guy who was discipled kind of by Tookie Williams from the Crips.
I read that.
Yeah, his initiation was at 10 years old. You know how he goes and blasts those Crips with a shotgun? That's reward. They didn't want a poem about Maya Angelou. They wanted him to shoot some bloods. It's just, that environment.
It's not.
I need
rewarded.
to pray about what Jason has already said.
It's not rewarded, but it's needed.
Yeah.
But somehow you have to break through that hard layer of, aggression and violence and hardness, and get through that so that you can actually start to treat their soul. And that's so hard to do.
Yeah, it's really an attempt to seek the wholeness of a person. Mm-hmm. All attributes of God, His image.
Yeah.
That if we neglect any part of His image within our own selves, we are not being our true self.
Amen.
And so for many men, they get an identity in blocking out all of their emotions and being a warrior. But that's if you believe what a warrior is according to today's society.
Right.
It's far more difficult to cry with people, to laugh with people, and be there day in and day out than it is to lecture, preach, and shame people.
That's right.
That's true.
So my main challenge was, as I grew up, my wife started telling me that I was probably going to need some help because I had a soft side and a hard side, and they were struggling really bad. So she had recommended some counseling with an assistant pastor. We were at a First Southern Baptist church.
Oh.
I wasn't so excited about it, but it was getting to that point where Mindy would really like me to go.
So you had to basically say, okay, I'm going to create this false self. This is who I'm going to have to be to survive. Where'd that lead in your teens, kind of that age? Where, kind of paint the picture of how did that lead up to Christ, or what was the path up to Christ?
So early on, I learned that the aggression or my mental or bodily strength actually got me more accepted. Mm-hmm. So my father vicariously lived through me via sports and through fighting neighborhood kids.
Okay.
Wow.
So football, wrestling, track, basketball.
Jeez, man.
Wow, so you're...
I did two of those.
You're like the jock kid. I had no idea.
I did those two in fencing.
I was a mixed salad of sorts. I could literally hang with several different crowds. I lifted weights, got strong, got fast, was a running back in football, did well.
Dang.
Wow.
But those that I felt closer to were those that were struggling emotionally. So me and the new wave kids, the punk kids, and the goth kids, those are the people I hung with. So I could bounce back and forth between the groups.
You were a triple threat because that's the kid I feared the most. He was cool and punk and understood obscure bands, but instead of just hating the football kids for being physically talented, he also could play football. Those were the worst. Those were the ones that you
are
were
Sean's
afraid of.
kryptonite right now.
Yeah, sorry, Sean.
No, it's all right.
But much of that was false.
Sure, yeah.
Had I been given options from my dad as to what I might want to do and what I'd be interested in, I would be more musical and artistic.
That's interesting.
I'd write stories, write lyrics. He just happened to force me into it, and we found a little bit of genetics there.
Were you ever in a band or anything like that, or?
Yes, I was in a band. I was basically the growler.
Awesome.
See, I was nervous about actually singing, but in the punk band, they're like, well, just yell. I was like, oh, I can do that. I can be loud. I was like, Sean's mom has told me I'm loud my whole life and to shut up. So I was like, I can do that. I was like, everyone's parents tell me I do that already. I might as well make an album. Remember, we got a demo going? I was like, yeah, sure.
Yep. Yeah.
But,
that was awesome.
And I wasn't sober. So there's that. But.
I had so much angst in there that the hardcore punk scene really fit what I was looking for at the time.
There you go.
It was acceptance and it was physicality.
Back then, what would you say was your favorite band or your main squeeze as far as music goes?
Back then, it was a band called Husker Du.
Husker Du, there you go. See?
DRI.
Oh, wow.
All right, that's what I see.
Yeah.
DRI. Oh gosh.
And then I was friends with some of 7 Seconds.
There you go. Did you know?
Rest in peace. They just broke up, by the way.
Dude.
So sad.
Who'd you know? Was it Kevin or was it
It was Kevin.
Who was the bassist? Something. Dang it! I took care of his kid in the after school program.
Oh, really?
It was something, not Soul. He had one of those stage names, like a last name connect. But I took care of the kid at the bassist. I only met Kevin once, but it was just, he was in a hurry and like, hey man, that's cool. Yeah, cool. And just walked off. I was like
all their songs.
Yeah, I was like, I think I had a discussion with you. But all right, so you knew Kevin. And
yeah. So when I was younger, for some reason, I really related with the angst that Henry Rollins had.
Dude,
that's what I was going to say. I pictured you.
I thought he was going to say Black Flag. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of that anger rock.
Yeah, that's the good stuff that gets deep down into my bones.
Well, what about the paradox of that? Because Henry Rollins also wrote like poetry. That's the interesting thing. So
he's a philosopher.
He had that tough guy thing, but like you're like, well, you write poetry. He's like, I know, but I'll still hit you in the face and talk about politics. And you're like, okay. So
that's his false self.
You think so? Oh, see, we're doing soul care for Henry right now.
One of my favorite books, I know I said Neuromancer was my favorite, but a competitive one is his spoken word "Get in the Van" by Henry Rollins.
Mm-hmm. That one's dope,
it's
man.
So good. I can listen to that or read it anytime, over and over again. I love it.
How old is that book?
20 years now.
Because I want to say 20? He still was like a little more active in the music scene. Because now he does more of the spoken word, the more philosophy poetry. He'll like talk. He's a jack dude. He's kind of big, man.
I love all that,
dude. He's awesome.
He's so good playing a cop or a security guard too.
Because
he literally
figures of authority.
Yeah, he can parody it or something. He's so good at that.
Remember Liar?
Dude.
Yes.
What Henry Rollins, I thought, had a friend who got shot next to him or something like that. He lost a friend, I thought.
Yeah.
He had something tragic happen because they fired and went past him. Yeah. I think he had, what would you call it, survivor's guilt, kind of? Like, because he saw something, I remember. Something crazy, but...
Yeah, some level of PTSD with it.
But... So, at what point did Jesus come into the picture? What was the catalyst for that?
Well, what most people don't know is I was saved when I was 6.
I did not know. I've only smoked with you, so no. Really? I'd say, where was it at? What was the situation?
So when my family were doing the best they could, clean for a period of time, my dad became a pastor. And I would either be at his church or his friend's church. It was during one of the worship songs. I couldn't control the tears, and I couldn't move my body.
Wow.
And I felt the Holy Spirit, like, palpably. What's messed up about it? And don't get me wrong, there's nothing messed up about being saved. But my dad thought I was jerking around in church.
Okay.
Jeez.
He thought I was making fun of everything.
Yeah.
So he did that like Vulcan grip.
Yeah.
That dads can do.
Mm-hmm.
Told me to quit it. Then we got home. He had me pick my branch off the tree.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
And beat me with that for like 10 minutes.
Ugh.
But the grace in all that was that after I put my clothes back on, after the whooping, I went to the Lord in prayer and felt his love and warmth.
Jeez, man.
That's crazy.
So that's my salvation story. So all the time I was angry and being against other races, if you will, you can imagine the turmoil inside. I was not racist, never have been. But it was a group that liked my skin color and my anger.
Okay. So that was another part of the false self was, okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You said this was when, you were in a stage when your parents were doing the best they could. I hate that saying. And I hear my parents say that, or I hear everybody say that.
It's an enabling comment.
It is. The best my dad could do was ignore me. That's not the best. That's like mediocre. You know what I mean? the best that my dad could possibly do was like leaving while I needed him emotionally or something like that. That's not his best. That's like
That's
an
crap.
acceptable amount that he knew how to do. Yeah, whatever his experience was. It's certainly not the best he could do. He could have done much better, I think. And I bet your dad could have done much better too.
Yeah,
Mine couldn't. He's just. I'm just accepting him for who he is. No.
mine created a big performance trap for me.
Oh yeah, I believe it.
So I spent most of my life looking to be affirmed and worthy.
Ugh.
So that's
brutal.
what my dad caused.
Yeah. Gosh.
What was his dad like? Did you know anything about him or no?
I did, yeah. He was in the Royal Navy. He was from Scotland. He was tatted like head to toe. That was when I first started liking body art.
Yes.
My dad was tatted as well. His dad was an alcoholic and used to beat him as well.
Jeez.
He was also a master mason. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with Scottish rites.
No, I thought you were talking
a little bit.
Freemasons. Well, Sean does. Go
Sorry.
ahead, Sean.
Oh, so sorry.
So sorry.
Yeah, I have a great-grandfather who was not master, but some strange level, and it's some weird stuff.
Really is. And so basically how that ended up for my dad was my grandpa drank every night himself to oblivion.
Ugh.
And then he would abuse the family.
Jeez.
Physically, verbally. And so my dad came from that. And that caused my dad to have to go to a detention center at 10. That started his path.
Wow.
What do you think now? You talk about it was a false image, the whole idea of white supremacy, of all that. So obviously you go, okay, that wasn't really what I believed. What was it about this group of people? Because I know you say, okay, they liked me, but I'm guessing, and maybe I'm wrong, were there any like tough dudes in that group who maybe were older than you or stronger guys who you kind of went like, oh man, like they're cool, and their acceptance meant a lot to you, or their affirmation? I mean, I wasn't sure, because I know sometimes in crews and gangs you'll have some older guy who's just like, we believe in you, we're your family, and they build you up, and you're like, man, I'd do anything
it's
for
the
him.
grooming process.
So, yeah.
I was at a gig, and we were doing, basically a lot of moshing.
Yeah.
And because of my athletic background, I did fairly well in the pit. And it was there that a guy, at the time it was United Front.
Mm-hmm.
And he saw me, started talking to me, and started getting me interested, and then said that I could be a leader in the movement.
Jeez.
It's kind of the stories I hear because I was never approached because I
tried to get you in a gang.
I was
once.
never a physical specimen. Yeah, but it was never because they're like, hey, we see potential in you.
Yeah, it was more
like,
steal stuff.
You're my friend, and I feel like I owe this to you. But
Sean filmed me getting jumped in. No joke. He filmed me.
we should put that
you did?
on our podcast.
He
notes.
did.
If I
He
can
almost
find it.
jumped in, and I think
Mine was
someone-
not filmed.
Yeah, mine was quite the surprise. I didn't know what was going on, but
Well,
Yeah.
while
It
I
seems-
was first
go
getting,
ahead.
sorry, while I was getting to know this group of people, some of the females in the group would on the side occasionally talk to me and say, "You seem different.
huh?
You don't seem quite like this is your thing."
Oh,
That's
really?
interesting.
And so I would get comments like, "Well, you do caring things, so this doesn't really seem to fit what we're doing here."
Or you're so good at the tango, and you're like, yes,
Tango.
yes.
It'd be more like do-si-do, like
I am the worst dancer on the
It's a
planet.
form of a tango. I suppose.
I can dance. It's just hardcore dancing, which is not dancing, which is assault. I can assault.
I've seen some good hardcore dancing.
I can offend.
I can offend people. But continue, Sean.
I was just going to say, it seems like those recruiter guys or visionary leader guys are a little predatory.
What?
With choosing people.
Chicken hawks?
Yeah, maybe that's the right word.
I don't know. I was just quoting American history.
Oh, yeah.
Ex-American history acts.
It seems like they finding somebody who is tough isn't necessarily like the top of their candidates list. It's finding somebody who's tough and who is emotionally damaged that they could convince to take a high role in this. Does that sound right?
You're much more impressionable.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can be conditioned much easier if you want to fit in.
Yeah, and like you're saying, even if you don't even truly believe, you're not a true believer, you still can be molded into at least doing what a true believer does. And that's
I ended up replacing my leader.
Wow.
Jeez, man.
So you can see how the enemy works in terms of making you believe so many lies that you become 180 of your true self.
And so to clarify this, United Front is essentially a skinhead gang.
It is, yeah.
And you were kind of into the punk scene because you're more creative. That's the only reason people ever get into the punk scene, I'm sure. And you...
I just wanted to make my Republican parents angry. I'm going to be honest. I wasn't that deep. But,
And you had all this angst.
Yes.
And they were just the ones that got to you first and could meet you on a level that you needed.
Yes.
Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of being able to vent your feelings, vent your beliefs and your thoughts, that's what many children want to do ultimately, is to be heard.
So it could have just as soon been like Antifa or something if it existed back then. Anybody who comes and says, hey, we like the way you dance hard and we want you to be...
If they were aggressive in nature.
Yeah. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. Because I needed to get some things off my chest, verbally and physically. And it was through the music of questioning the government.
Yeah.
And not being a yes man of the government. And thinking for myself, that's where I landed. Those were my core beliefs early on, was why, how come, why. I don't take anything at face value.
Speaking of that, at some point you joined the Marines?
I did, yeah. I was being investigated by the Reno Police Department.
Because of United Front?
Shout out to RPD.
Yeah, they're
it's my boys.
They had placed the investigative lieutenant's son into my group.
Dude.
Wow, really?
And I had been training him, and we had been doing things that were inappropriate.
Really?
And then I had started dating Mindy, and Mindy started telling me that, I don't want to sound crazy, but there's people here, like, following you.
Wow.
So we'd go to Comstock. I don't know if you remember back in the day. We'd go to...
Yeah.
Just go do our thing, down, like Keystone area and stuff.
Yeah.
And get our food. There was a guy that was around me, like, pretty much wherever I went.
And you thought he was part of your crew?
No, I knew he was not.
Oh.
His son was.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And so there was also a white van that went around, so I'm assuming they were trying to listen.
Oh, wow. Seth knows what that's like.
And so when Mindy noticed this, and I noticed this, I started praying to God again.
Oh, wow.
Because what I felt was that, I guess, not to be overly confident, but I felt that maybe the Holy Spirit was communicating that I could be in in a pretty wrong path had I gone forward.
Yeah, no kidding.
So I prayed. That night I had a dream that I visited a recruiter.
Jeez.
Huh.
Right, and then the next day I went and saw a recruiter.
Wow. So you were dating Mindy before you joined the Marines. I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and she did not care for my views.
Yeah, I believe that.
Because she, too, had explained to me through the years that I was opposite the leader of a racist.
Jeez.
Right.
Sean's
It broke her heart.
one of Sean's family members, and it is the grace of God. I was trying to talk to him about just striking up a partnership, and I got arrested shortly after, which was grace of God, because I was trying to bring my crew to the next level of like, okay, not just like bats and knives anymore. Like, we need to change it. And I remember, I think you were over there. The helicopter came over, and he started flipping them off. I'm like, I don't know if they're here for you, man. Because because they were, dude. They were tracking me. They finally got me.
Yeah.
But it was a great shot. Because if they hadn't got me, it would have gone worse. Because I was like, this is the next level. It's no, because I was kind of inspired by when I'd hear stories of like Boston or New York or even here Salt Lake, or then if I even heard of like crews outside of hardcore, like Mexican Mafia or like Crips, I'd hear that and go, that's a real gang. Like, we need to step it up. Right. And that was my next plan, and I got arrested. I was like, it was
Plus,
the grace
like,
of God.
Sons of Anarchy
Jesus
just debuted
intercepts.
on TV. I think that
Sons of Anarchy. Yeah.
that helped a little bit.
Look, Jax has a great butt and all, but
No.
I'm just saying.
So many butt shots in that show.
So many.
Um,
The director's like, we have to get his butt. They will not understand motorcycle culture unless you see that crack. Right, Chad?
That's right.
You saw it.
You
paused it. You had on pause. Oh, we all think he's handsome. Come on.
It was really the hook for a lot of females.
I just want to say, like, as a public service announcement to the Reno PD, sometimes you're not as subtle as you think you are. When you fly a helicopter over with a guy with a camera in it, we know that's you. And probably there's a lot of white vans hanging out around the tri-state area. But when you
have a sniper rifle out the window
with a new paint job and exempt
plates.
Yeah,
EX.
We know that's you.
A car going 2 miles per hour, like on a 40 mile per hour, or dude, they had, all right. So we were, we were at a concert, and cops drove by just to talk crap to us. Someone had been tagging, I won't say his name because I don't want to get his permission, but it was free so-and-so because he was in jail. So they tag free so-and-so and put his name. So they drive by and they slow down to 5 miles per hour. They go, hey, D-bags, free so-and-so. And he spits out the window and like flips us off and drove away. I was like, how rude, good sir. Like, I am trying to enjoy a hardcore concert, and this constable of the law drives by, lewd hand gestures, and I got in a fight like 10 minutes later.
The internet was so bad for that. The cops thought they had like the corner on the internet.
Yeah.
And we had that Reno scene forum, remember?
You would just post details. Like,
people would be like, hey guys, I'm wondering where can I get some weed? Yeah. I'm looking for some weed or some cocaine. And we'd be like, okay, Officer Smedley, we know it's you.
Yeah, maybe at 5 Fake Street. And like, they're like, this is our big break. Gang unit. All right, I will say this. Look, because people, all right, gotta be real. Can I be real, gentlemen? Can I?
Yeah, I hope so.
All right, so I do appreciate many cops whose God has put authority in place. I get that. There were police I've met along the way that I feel like if you're a certain person of society, they pick up some of how culture views you, and that like that translates over to like this. If you say, I've done this to women, and culture views you a certain way, the cop's not going to be perfectly separate from that. He might carry over some of those feelings culturally in how he treats you and talks to you because he's been programmed from the news. You're a scumbag. You're irredeemable. when they hear a gang member or white supremacist or anything like that, I feel some guys were more likely to go, I'm going to twist that handcuff a little tighter. I'm going to slam your shoulder a little faster. I'm going to raise my voice a little quicker. And I think part of it was they thought, all right, this guy probably thinks he's a tough guy. I have to start out strong. I can't let him get the upper hand.
They're matching your aggression.
But it's like, there was times where I'm like, I'd meet such nice cops, but the second it was a gang such situation, much more likely to say, I will tase you in a heartbeat. I will blah, blah. Like, so quick to jump because, yeah, matching the aggression. And they have to take you seriously. Like, they can't go, well, I bet they're not as bad as everyone says. They had to, if the news said the guys I'm with are bad, they had to go, we have to treat you like that. And they would, that's where sometimes the depravity would come out where I'm like, dude, you got your foot on that dude's back. He's already done. He's already listening. We're done. Or even saying like we had a friend whose leg was busted open. We'd fought some Tongans. His leg is just bleeding. And we tell him like, hey, we think his arm's broken. Leg is busted. Shut up. They're twisting him. Put him over where his leg is against the pavement and it's split open. So all those rocks are in the wound.
It's cruel.
And it's not to tell people, hey, you know, I hate the police. It's to say like, I've seen depravity brings out depravity. It really does. Like brokenness just brings out more brokenness. And and you saw, and this doesn't deter from the good cops. We got guys at Reno and Sparks who are awesome police officers.
Of course.
But you're in a terrible situation that's high stress. And especially if they're not following God or have no community or support or any type of hope bringing them out of that, all they have to come home to is getting drunk and thinking about all the people they dealt with. And it just, I've just seen that depravity brings out more depravity. Like sin never brings out like, oh, sin brings out the best in people. It's like, no, God brings out the best in sin, but sin brings out the worst in men. It just, I don't know if you guys seen that, but to your health.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I definitely think I saw it one time where this guy was like, I can't breathe, turn me over. And the cops were like, shut up.
I saw a video of a guy getting the cop, and to the police department's credit, they apologized and fired the person. He took a 15-foot running start and kicked the guy in the face. He was handcuffed on the ground, head down. And the other cop even looked up and went, dude, chill. Like, he even was like, it's done, but just running start kicked him in the face. But,
basically a soccer kick.
Yeah, soccer, perfect example. And I think the person was a gang member. And just, and it's not to dehumanize it. Cops are not exempt from the struggles and biases we have in our society. It's,
absolutely.
I mean, ask people how they feel about child molesters. They go, oh, kill them.
Yeah.
And just,
I don't believe that cops get the proper soul care.
Yes.
They are dealing high in PTSD.
Yep.
And then you add that to their upbringing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And without constant care, these things happen quite easily.
Yep.
I was just going to say that the most realistic and well executed movie I've ever seen is called Lethal Weapon. And think of
I thought you were going to say Training Day.
Yeah.
I know it's like a silly character cop buddy movie, but literally like there's a psychiatrist there and she wants to help. And he goes, okay. And all he does is make jokes about the psychiatrist and tells her that she's an idiot. And it's like literally just like you were talking about being a boy or being a young man, like aggression in Lethal Weapon, aggression is the answer.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like the truth is like having that well balanced and maintained and healed soul should be like the starting point for when you go out on the street and deal with people.
Amen to that. Same with ministry.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They don't, well, and think of, so I don't envy their job. They do have times where, because people ignore it, they have to go domestic dispute of a woman who doesn't want to press charges, and it's the third time this guy's beat him, and she pulls a knife. They have to pull someone over, and it's the 10th time today they go, we're going to see you. I mean, okay. Or to make a decision in half a second. So it's like, but I feel like our society can't have a complex situation of saying, hey, I can appreciate and desire cops to flourish and thrive, while at the same time look critically and say, okay, where are they not thriving? Where are they broken? Where do they need care? And also, where do we see depravity coming through? Because if you think of it, put a person without God in a high stress situation, tons of responsibility, a weapon that can kill in a heartbeat, and people who are immediately matching your aggression go, oh, that'll be fine. There'll never be depravity. Something will never go wrong. It's
an animosity that most of us can't relate to.
No. I feel like we can hold both. We can say, I want cops to flourish, but I also want them to be healthy and look at the brokenness in the system, and that it's not wrong to say, and can we have accountability? Because accountability will reveal the good cops, and it will hopefully flesh out the ones who go, dude, it's not just a bad good, but you're broken. Maybe you shouldn't be in the system as an agent of it. It just like bad judges. That
should really be part of the psychological test.
I would think so. I would have no problem if my brother was a cop, but some of the guys who went to high school with me, no, they were psychopaths like I was. Like serious. Well, sometimes still am, but it's like they were nuts. I wouldn't want them I wouldn't trust them with a potato, let alone pulling someone over. They would shoot 10 times for a person waving at them. Like it's just.
Well, a lot of sadists go into law enforcement.
Yeah. Did you guys ever see that Choir Boys movie?
Which one is that?
No,
Who's in that?
It had like this, they called him a black glove cop. His name was Roscoe Rules. He was like the sadist cop.
Already sounds interesting, yeah.
It's not great. It's almost like a parody of a cop movie.
Is it a period piece,
serious.
like 70s, 80s,
yeah,
90s?
like late 70s, I think.
LA? Everyone gangs up on LAPD because that's the one that had so many. LA and New York had all those corruption charges.
But either ways, it was just like those. It was just like explained really well, like because we know people who have been cops, and they were leading worship before they were cops, and talking about how everybody is beautiful and created in the image of God, and that everybody has the same struggle with sin. And then once they become cops, and I think this is part of my cop animosity.
Oh, no.
Once they become cops, they say, well, time to go do another day of cleaning the trash off the street. And like, I need to find some people to put down so that other people don't get put down. And I'm taking out one person instead of them taking out 50.
In your experience, all right.
In my experience,
some of them
totally,
in your
totally,
experience. I can name 10 you did.
I'm not saying,
just say you hate cops. You've
I'm
so
not
long.
saying that. I'm just saying.
You have a shirt right now that says, I hate cops.
I'm saying we know people. And do we not know people who have said those things, who were worship leaders? Not leaders.
Know the reference you're talking about.
But my point is that
might is the clause.
This Choir Boys movie kind of explains that all. That's all my point.
Seriously.
It's
I have
hard
put
to
up
find.
with your crap for 85 years.
It's hard to find.
Know.
Listeners, if you can find it, go watch the Choir Boys. Not for the faint of heart, by the way. I want to get back to Jason, and here's the thing that I realized, Jason, as similar upbringing. I don't think I was lower class. I don't think my dad was ever hitting me with a switch or doing anything like that, and I don't think I was ever completely.
Did he hit you with anything though, or
he hit me with things? But I don't. It sounds
just
like
don't downplay. Your pain. I'm sick of it.
Well, I don't want
I'm taking a stand.
I don't want to minimize your experience and compare myself to yours because everybody's different, and I had my own thing. But what I'm saying is this: I grew up in that punk scene, never being good at football or any sports or anything like that, and always hating the jocks because. I didn't like them, and I didn't like their stupid.
A lot of them
pants.
were bullies.
Yeah, and they were just like, I felt like they were unfairly attributed value when I wasn't. And so, flash forward to being an adult, myself being an adult, and I lean on the wisdom of guys like you, and you especially, and I realize that I'm just like that jock, thinking that everything his football coach says is the gospel. You know what I mean? I can't trust my parents, so I go to the football coach and I say, hey man, how do you date a woman? How do you do all these things? You know what I mean? And I'm just as like pathetic as this caricature I've created of jocks in my head is. And so at what point, and maybe if you can describe the transformation that occurred. Right now we talked about you're in the Marines. You're running essentially from the law, kind of, or trying to avoid the law by going into the Marines. You've had this experience where you pray to God and you're wanting to change this stuff. Can you describe when and how that transformation took place, and maybe what the entire period of that time was like, and how long it was?
Okay.
If you can.
I was 22, and like I said, Mindy, we were married in the Marine Corps.
You were in the Marines for how long when you got married?
We got married before the Marines.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, about 6 months
either.
prior.
Wow.
My counselor was a female at the church, and then my other counselor was the assistant pastor. The female was most effective with me because at that juncture of my life, I hated men.
Wow.
So my vow that I made subconsciously or unconsciously was that no man will ever dominate me.
Wow.
So as I'm going through this counseling with this females have always been able to speak to me better than males. I have a soft spot for females. It's because of how my mom was treated.
Jeez, yeah.
And so this lady eventually was very kind and heard my story, but she started to call me out. She would actually call out my false self. At the time it was persona. You name it. What am I fronting with right now? And she had discernment. And it's the gift of discernment that breaks through a lot of walls with people. Is that you can hear their story and all their blabbering, but you can actually see through them. And so she saw through me. And sometimes she would not go forward in the counseling until I admitted that I had been fronting.
Jeez.
Wow.
So she would call out my personas. She'd say, okay, right now you're the nice guy trying to please everybody. And a little bit earlier you were the tough guy that never hurts. She would call those out. And it was then that I felt the Holy Spirit and Jesus working a healing and a softening.
Wow.
She ended up being very, very effective with me. I personally have had a total of 14 years of counseling for myself. I don't say that to brag. I don't say that it's prescriptive, but that is what the Lord planned for me.
Did that start while you were still in the Marines? The counseling?
Yes.
Wow.
That does make you better than Sean, just so you know. It's okay. You're like, it doesn't make, but it does. And that's okay. Sean
I'm working on 13.
I didn't have a soft spot till after I got married and I put on some weight. So I had,
It was, what was it?
now it's all over my body.
Then that counseling with her for a couple of years, and then it was the birth of my daughter, Kayla.
Oh,
Yeah, that changes a lot, huh?
only everything.
So
Jeez.
the true me, with all of its might, needed to express his love for his child. And it was in this unconditional love that I had for her that the Lord started showing me that he has that love for the rest of the world.
Jeez.
And that what I have been feeling superior to and inferior to were his children.
Wow.
So through counseling, through my daughter, through Mindy's endless support, I started transforming back into my sensitive self.
And how long you guys been married now?
28.
Jeez.
Wow. That's awesome.
I think this is why we do a disservice sometimes to the gospel. And I say it's about heaven too. Like, we talk about the gospel and you go, where your sins are forgiven. Yeah. What else? Well, it's just sins. Well, but you're a new creation, like you're made new. And they go, well, but sin. I go, I know, I'm on board. What about the fact you're an heir? You'll reign with God. He's making you new. He's making you like Christ. You'll love like you never could. He's healing it. There's so many things. Same thing, because you bring up heaven, they go, well, an 8-year-old in a book said that you go there and there's candy and everything's nice and Oprah's like dancing. I'm like, how late? We're talking about heaven, and that's the best we can come up with. Like, I feel like there is a way to say the gospel, not to compromise or try and make it hip, but to just do it justice, to say, instead of just, well, he did bad things, he died for him, now go be alone and read the Bible and try not to be gay. It's like, how about this? Like, God, with Jesus resurrecting, N.T. Wright says, is saying, I am doing something new. I will make all things right. I'm going to redeem it. I'm going to justify everything that's ever happened, where you'll look and go, no, he's made it all right. He's righted all the wrongs. He's made everyone redeemed. He's taken away the pain. He's brought us joy. And we'll live in this new heaven, new earth, where it's beautiful, it's ecstasy, it's whole, and all insecurity, all pain is just a myth. It's a legend now. And actually do it justice, because, like, it's not just what Jason, he saved you from, it's what he saved you to. So we can say, well, he saved me from this. Yeah, but he saved you to be a shepherd, to speak to people, where you can actually speak shalom into their soul because you are indwelt by the Holy Spirit. Like, every time you speak God's truth, you are actually giving them a piece of shalom to their soul that's in this world of chaos and pain and evil. And I don't know why we can't get creative with that. I don't know why we're so scared of, it's almost like we're scared to hope. We're scared to actually, like, get excited about how beautiful it is, because I think heaven seems too far off, so we don't want to get our hopes up, because, I have to go work tomorrow, and if I get too excited, it'll just make it that much harder to wait. And the gospel, I think we're almost scared of it laying us down, so we don't want to talk too great about it. But it's like, let's hope. Let's actually talk about, like, no, how good is it what he's done with Jason? Like, Sean literally is just the worst. And God has done, no. Like, Sean literally was a guy I told about God, baptized, and then I wasn't following Christianity. And how wacky that when I get out of jail, Sean lets me live with him. And it was his love as a friend. And yes, I said love. Yes, men can actually show love to each other.
Word.
Like,
gay.
Yeah, Jonathan and David. They're like, that's so lame. Dude, David and Jonathan loved each other, and David could put you in the ground, man. It just...
Yeah.
It was from this real, true love of a brother. And God worked through that. I'm like, why don't we do that justice and say, well, I've done bad things. Jesus done good things. Y'all are doing good. Let's all try to watch Kirk Cameron. It's
Get over it.
Yeah, it just, so much American mixed in there. Not enough kingdom. Not enough. He's a king. Like, seriously, the king of the universe goes, I declared Jason my kid. I'm like, why aren't we more excited about that? As opposed to, like, hey, have you heard the McRib's out next week? I'm not, hey, Kyle Wetzel loves McRib. It's fine. But it's like, why do you get more excited about the next movie sequel, but not the fact of, like Sean can look at me and go, oh, my friend's not going to hell. Yeah. That's pretty cool, I would think. I think it's cool. I'm biased, but.
You talked about, like, that, Jason, when you talked about the culture's definition of a warrior.
Yeah.
And we think of a warrior as, like, this stoic, angry, aggressive person. And for some reason, we can't see a warrior as somebody who has any emotion. Or love or anything like that. When, our examples of warriors are, like you said, King David, who chopped off 200 foreskins. I mean...
That is exhausting to chop that many ball sacks. That's exhausting.
Dude, I don't think it's the ball sack.
Oh, I thought you took
once again, your homeschool anatomy. That's valid. Either way.
I thought that's why he carried the foreskins in, was the ball sack.
One child.
He's all one skin, two skin.
He couldn't find a bag, so he used a ball sack, and then he stuffed it with foreskins.
That scientific term is coin purse, Sean. Coin purse. What did he carry him in? He's not going to just have some Philistine foreskins in his hand. You have to have it in a sack.
They had plenty of bags, sacks back then.
I think it's because I was nervous to say the shaft. It felt okay to say sack, but shaft.
You gotta,
it felt uncouth.
This is part of kind of experiencing.
This is the last time we let
you.
Ryan Smith write the script for our show.
It's okay. It's okay to say shaft.
Is it?
It's okay.
Because I'm not talking about
Seth, it's okay
shaft like Samuel Jackson.
It's okay.
Don't you do this to me.
It's okay to say
if shaft. You Goodwill Hunting me, I will stab your tongue.
Okay. My point was
the shaft, not the ball sack. I'm sorry, not the coin purse.
No,
he was slashing shafts.
I like the idea now. Dude, I think that's a good hermeneutic.
You said 200. That's 200 shafts he slashed.
That's my point.
That's a lot.
It's not easy to slash a shaft.
Tunnels.
Think about this. You got to put it on a
carpal tunnel syndrome from slashing. You go to a doctor. He goes, "Oh, how'd you hurt your wrist?" Well, I was slashing skids with my boys. Them shafts.
I was cutting some dick.
I need some Vicodin because I kept slashing the shafts trying to get them foreskins. And come on, Sean, continue with your point, please.
That would cause a repetitive motion carpal tunnel.
And the doctor's like, I don't know, just stop eating bacon.
I'm unpacking this right now, as Matt Chandler would say. Unpacking the truth of that.
Are you tracking with me?
I'm tracking with you.
Go ahead.
I think I get triggered by the word unpacking.
I know, right?
Anyway,
I was going to say that there's a good book by Stu Weber called Tender Warrior, which, again, when you say that to somebody, they go, well, that sounds gay. But it's actually, honestly...
Is it a good book?
It's a really good book, and it's a really good example of comparing how culture says masculinity should be, and comparing it to truly how we were created, including characters like David and Abraham and even Jesus.
So why has the culture given this book the shaft instead of supporting it? I'm done.
Question though. I think we're kind of turning a corner a little bit in some way, and it's probably overcorrecting and maybe a pendulum swinging a little too far. But we have this hipster movement where dudes are supposed to be a little more emotional and a little more sensitive. And we also have movies like Warrior, which was a great movie about a UFC fighter. I don't know, loosely based on a couple characters in the UFC.
Yeah. They're broken, hurting men. They're
exactly. And it talks about the difficulties they have to overcome. And the difficulties aren't physical fighting. The difficulties are they have a screwed up dad.
Yeah.
And
dude,
you have to get over
that movie.
Stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think we kind of are maybe starting to turn a corner, or maybe we already have turned the corner as far as cultural awareness of masculinity goes. But I'm curious, did you at any point have to find, Jason, I'm asking you, did you at any point have to find a balance? Is there a point when you ever have to say, oh, at this point I'm being too emotional and I have to pull back from that, or something like that?
So with the paradigm of the whole soul or the whole person, all emotions given by God through His image are good for us. However, when you balance it with other scriptures, that men are to be the head of their wives. But it goes on later to say, you need to really respect and love your wife.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That there are times where a firmness and a godly confidence is required.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say godly confidence, you'll notice that the qualifying word is godly. This means that in what the Lord has taught you and shown you, theologically and anecdotally, experientially, that there are times when some things have to be corrected, some things have to be organized, and there's a time to lead. And it's this balancing. It takes wisdom from God to be able to balance this whole man.
Yeah.
It's what I call the integrous man. Having integrity in all aspects of his life.
Yeah. That's good.
Not denying any certain emotions, not denying any real thoughts, not denying tears, but rather there's a place and a time for everything.
Sean, do you feel like Rod is more professional than Shaft? Does that work better? Do you guys feel like that would go better with the censors? A.K.A. us?
I feel like
Hey, you could say pillar.
Pillar.
Bill. I feel like biblically speaking,
Song of Psalms. Or...
The Tower of David.
yeah. If you use the analogies used in the rest of the Bible, I feel like they would arrive at some word better than rod.
I love
or
how
shaft.
the Bible is
It'd be
so
like dong or something.
The Bible is so dirty in some places, and we try to be cleaner than the Bible. The Bible talks about
we try to censor.
they had. It says, all right, I don't care. It says
Go ahead, get into
they
it.
had ejaculate like donkeys, and we go, they had special
emissions.
Yeah, emissions like animals. And I go, no, dude. They're talking about donkey dongs and like disgusting things. Like just say they chop up a concubine and we go, they cut up a lady of the night with butter knives. I'm like, no. They went crazy. They are depraved, broken humans, and yet you're scared to see a Kirk Cameron movie where he says damn.
Yeah. That's
like,
the thing.
I'm just the Bible, dude, Judges?
Just don't even talk about Nineveh.
Nineveh. They're like, they want to have a snuggle party with the angels. It's like, dude, why are you trying to be cleaner than Jesus?
Yeah.
Because Jesus came into a broken world, and you're going, no, he came into a PG world to save some people who weren't as great as they could be, and the really bad people who are the Democrats, and he's going to do this, blah, 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 and that's the story of the Bible. No, he came into a broken, terrible, this is a world where kids are slaughtered, terrible world, and you know it's terrible. And he's like, I'm going to make this right. He didn't come into a PG world to make it G. He came into this terrible, broken, beyond rating, a place where you go, there is no hope, give up. And he said, I will bring the hope. It's whack.
A lot of times what you're speaking of is Christians to the nth degree, out of their discomfort, create a theology or a philosophy that is unbiblical.
Yep.
Yeah, and the Pharisees essentially did that.
They did.
Well, I don't even know when it started, but at some point...
I think Second Temple period.
I would imagine, right? Because at some point,
Wasn't
it was
like
these stories of David, stories from Judges. Like, all of that stuff was pretty raw and serious. And at some point, we started to say, like...
it's nothing more than hedonism.
Yeah.
Explain that. I don't understand. I'm kind
of curious. I think
it
explains itself, Sean. I'm not sure. No, go ahead.
Christian comfort in the eyes of God is the same thing as hedonism. It's so pleasure-seeking and it's comfort-seeking.
That is very true.
Dang.
I think that is so true. I hadn't connected those. I think, like, do you know how in the Bible, the capital Lord is a translation of Yahweh, the name of God. And at some point they were being like reverent. And they were saying, we wouldn't even utter this because it's so holy.
That's right.
But somehow throughout the years that translated to there's certain things that you don't speak. And honestly, when I call upon when I'm like in the depths and darkness of my soul, and I need to call upon a name, the name is Yahweh. You know what I mean? The name is the name of the Lord, that I can boldly approach the throne because of Jesus' work, and I can say that name. And it's not like a sin to say that name. So at some point, using something that's serious, using a term that's serious became synonymous with sin. And I think that's the dangerous part. So, like, obviously, dong is a serious word and you only want to use it in serious circumstances. Mm-hmm. But at some point, and I think this started maybe Second Temple, maybe even before, and has moved all the way into American Christianity where like we're like, oh yeah, even uttering the word dong is sinful.
Well, this is in the New Testament where they start addressing profane language.
No.
Right. There's profane language, and it has mostly to do with your motive.
Yeah.
So why am I saying dong? In what context am I saying dong?
What's that?
This is the best conversation.
In Greek, I believe it's dongalopoulos, and it means to give length.
That's true, though. I know what you're talking about. In James, especially, it talks about, like, don't have coarse jesting. And don't speak in anger and...
Because Paul says filthy menstrual rags. Jesus calls a lady, he goes, should we give the food to the dogs?
Yeah.
And I just love it because you can't give a list either, because there's words I say now that back in the day they go, that has no meaning to me.
Right.
And there's words we're going to say now that 8 years from now they'll go, dong. Like, what? They're like, we call that a tritchet. Because Britain has taken over the world and killed all
tallywhacker.
the tallywhacker.
But it is a hard issue. Why are you saying it?
Yes.
Like, are we saying dong jestfully? A little bit. But are we saying it with ill intent? Are we saying it to harm
Are we
people?
trying to cause
Absolutely
someone
not.
to stumble? Am I trying to be vulgar to incite
Correct.
bad images? Am I trying to blaspheme God?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. I can curse sin and say that sin is, and use a word to describe filth and really be saying like, no, I'm trying to describe the evilness of sin. Or I can be saying, oh, I'm going to say it to show off to these kids and I'm trying to be prideful. I'm trying to be arrogant. I'm trying to lift myself up.
Exactly.
Paul Tripp talked about, he goes, we have more freedom than some people know. He goes, but the paradox is we also are called to a higher standard than some know. He goes, so in the right context, we can say some words that would make people blush. He goes, in the wrong context, if we as Christians don't say I love you with the right motive, it's just as sinful. Because we're saying it with pride and maliciousness in our heart and conscience.
Yeah.
And it
true.
was such a dichotomy to go, dang, like Paul Tripp broke it down because his son had asked him straight up, like, well, what are the words that are bad and why are they inherently bad? And he had to walk through it with his 10-year-old going, well, that's a good question, but it was interesting to say you have more freedom to say than some people we know, and yet we're held to a higher standard than anyone we know.
Yeah,
and it's like so...
That's a really good point.
Just crazy.
I've always believed that the word could be potato or avocado or the F word.
Yeah.
It's not the word, it's the intent.
Yeah.
A great example is huevos. It's a Spanish word, and it means literally eggs.
Right.
But it's used occasionally in Spanish to mean testicles. And the way that you're saying it, because literally, I have tried to learn Spanish at least 10 times. And I hear somebody say huevos, and I think they're talking about testicles, and it cracks me up. But they're literally saying, no, I'm going to cook some eggs.
Yeah.
And it's like, what they actually mean by it is what counts. It doesn't, my interpretation doesn't necessarily
But is any of
count.
that profane?
Yeah, I don't
So
think
this is where we enter in legalism.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And legalism is always subjective.
Well, and there's only some things I see where you can make a decent case of like, all right,
Lord's name in vain.
Like, yeah, I can never blaspheme God in a way that conveys grace. I can't. The reason I draw the line at a lot of like racial slurs is because I believe that violates the Imago Dei. I'm dehumanizing them down from where God says. And that to me, in a sense, is even blaspheming his image.
You're digging God.
So it's like anything that blasphemes God, I don't see how you can see that in a way that, because you don't sin to extend grace, but to take a subjective word that in our culture and time is bad, that 200 years wasn't, and describe sin that way, yeah, I think you should use strong words. Like if a guy says, yeah, I molested my daughter, yeah, you can say that's bad, or you can say that is, and use a word to describe us. And I think totally be in the right to say, no, it is that vulgar and evil, and you are meaning to convey the evilness of something that defies God. I have no guilt or conviction to that.
I agree with you on that.
Ryan Smith.
There are emotions with good words.
Absolutely. I've heard, and I don't know because I wasn't around 2,000 years ago, but I've heard when Jesus says brood of vipers, referring to the Pharisees, that's like the modern C word. That's like one of the worst words you can say.
Really?
I've heard that. Yeah. I don't know.
Was
if
it by
true,
McManus?
But either way, no, it wasn't. But it was by somebody with less reputation. But my point is, like, either way, even if it's not that bad, Jesus was expressing through words something that was vile. Because he was trying to express how dark and deep that legalism goes. It
matched the pain.
Yes. And he said that publicly is the crazy thing. He doesn't know.
Imagine us doing that preaching. If I even said that once. I was like, if I talked how Paul did, you wouldn't hear me preach. Because Or Jonathan's dad, he says, son of a perverse woman. That's not the original thing. You know what he's saying.
Yeah.
He goes, son of a woman of the... Dude, he's saying some terrible things about his mom.
Yeah.
Yep.
They say some stuff where, like, to call people dogs who were non-Jews back then, that wasn't like, no, to call him a dog, that just...
Yeah, not puppy.
Yeah, not puppy. It was specific. And Jesus knew the intent. It just...
So, I mean, the scripture tells us how Jesus looks within. He shines his light.
Amen.
He cuts through the bone and marrow.
Oh, yeah.
He's looking for why you do what you do. The rest is just presentation.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of podcasts that I listen to that I feel like try to push the envelope as far as language goes.
They're trying to be edgy. They're don't see
Christian
the glorifying
podcasts,
yeah.
or maybe Universalist podcasts, but they try to use some words. And I think you're right, Seth. It's like to be edgy, try to push the envelope and see how far we can go.
Because they put in conversations where I'm like, it wasn't even, they just threw it in there and sometimes they're even arguing with each other, getting mad. I'm like, oh, you said out of anger. That's fantastic.
Right. But I want to one-up all of them right now. And I promise I won't edit this. And I'm going to say a word that I think...
We just got a donation for beer, and we're going to lose all our Kirk Cameron money.
I'm going to say it because I want you guys to know that I'm not saying this emotionally for any personal reason.
To convey grace?
I'm saying this to build up.
Okay.
To convey grace.
Okay.
Here it comes. Silly ninny.
I hate so much what you choose to be. I don't know. For 80 years, I put up with this, Jason. 85 years.
Or you vampires.
You're going to want me to edit it, but I won't.
Do you know
I'm standing firm.
Sean met me because I was getting jumped, and Sean was just smoking his Marlboros, ignoring me.
Fourth grade.
I had one right now.
You were smoking
I know,
back
we
then.
should have brought
Yeah, that's right, Julie. Sean was smoking in elementary. I don't care. You already blame me for him running away. What about the question?
Sorry, Mom.
We got to ask Jason the question. You asked.
The question, yeah. And it's time to wrap this up. Jason, here's what I want to know. You've experienced a lot of things. Traumatic childhood, traumatic adolescence, traumatic adulthood even. What's better, cake or pie?
Pie.
Yes!
Because he loves the Lord.
Yes!
Still, we're winning so far, I feel like.
So
Let me be specific. Apple.
Yeah, please do. Apple pie? Is that what you said? Yeah. Now, how much cinnamon would you have on that apple pie?
Just a dash.
That is the best answer.
You ever had strawberry rhubarb or no?
Yeah, I have.
It's
good.
I had someone from the South actually make it for dude. Southern food, like if you look past the racism and the murder, dude, Southern food is so dope. There's just so
it really is.
It's like
Southern food and Mexican food. I mean, that's all I need.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I'm so happy to hear you say that. I think that shows that you truly have been transformed.
He's been changed by the gospel.
Has
his whole story, but the cake or pie were like, he is sealed by the Spirit.
That's right. Well, Jason, it was great having you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
We got to wrap this up, but I'm curious. Do you have anything else to say or anything
I do
to
apologize for Sean bringing up Wangs for like 20 minutes. Go ahead.
I would say to anybody listening that whatever you might be going through and whatever may be causing pain, could be daily, could be intermittently, Jesus is with you and will heal you.
Word.
I feel shame.
I know.
It's like so beautiful. I want to go now and like throw down like idols or cut people who worship Baals. Tales from the ditch!
If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, or if you want to reach out to Pastor Jason, email us at talesfromtheditch@gmail.com. And feel free to stop by our website at talesfromtheditch.download, and there you can subscribe or donate money, which will be used for alcohol to further this podcast.
www.elephantintheroom. www. Zip it up.
Zip it up!
Bye.